I remember the exact moment my life changed forever. Because that was the day my own daughter abandoned her child on my doorstep and disappeared like we meant nothing. Before I continue, take a second to like this video and comment where you're watching from. My name is Vivian. I'm 68 years old. And everything I'm about to tell you still doesn't feel real sometimes. It started on a cold Friday afternoon in November. I was in my kitchen making tea just like I did every day around that time. The house was quiet. Too quiet, honestly. That's what happens when you live alone long enough. You start getting used to silence. Then the doorbell rang. I remember thinking it was strange. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened the door, my heart dropped. Rachel, my daughter. I hadn't seen her in months. She was standing there, looking tired, distant, like she didn't really want to be there. And next to her was a little boy, 5 years old, my grandson Ethan. He was staring at the ground, rocking back and forth slightly. His hands pressed tightly over his ears like he was trying to block out the world. "Mom," Rachel said quickly, barely even looking at me. "I just need a weekend. Please." "A weekend?" That's what she said. "Just a weekend." I looked down at Ethan again. He didn't look up, didn't speak, didn't even acknowledge me. "Rachel, what's going on?" I asked. But she was already stepping backward. "I'll call you Sunday," she said. And just like that, she turned around, walked to her car, got in, and drove away. No hug, no goodbye, not even a glance back at her own son. I stood there frozen, watching her taillights disappear down the street, with this heavy feeling in my chest I couldn't explain yet. Something wasn't right. Behind me, Ethan was still standing on the porch, rocking, silent, alone. "Hey, sweetheart," I said softly. "You wanna come inside?" No response. He didn't even look at me. I noticed then, his backpack looked small, too small, definitely not packed for a weekend. That's when the feeling in my chest got worse. I opened the door wider and stepped aside. After about a minute, he slowly walked past me into the house, still covering his ears, still not saying a word. The moment he stepped inside, the refrigerator made a low humming sound. Ethan flinched like it hurt him. The heater clicked on. He pressed his hands tighter against his ears. I quickly closed the door as gently as I could, trying not to make any noise. But he had already moved. He went straight into the living room, crouched down in the corner near the bookshelf, and started rocking again. I just stood there, watching him, completely lost. I had been a school teacher for 35 years. I had worked with children, even a few with autism. But this was different. This wasn't a classroom. This was my home. And this child was now my responsibility. "Are you hungry?" I asked carefully. "Nothing." "Thirsty?" He rocked faster. No words. No eye contact. Nothing. I went into the kitchen, grabbed a yellow plastic cup I used to keep for when he visited. Those rare, short visits Rachel allowed maybe once or twice a year. I filled it with water and brought it over. I placed it on the floor, a little distance away from him. He stopped rocking, just for a second, looked at the cup, then went right back to rocking again. That night was one of the hardest nights of my life. I tried making chicken nuggets. Rachel once mentioned that's what he liked. He didn't touch them. I made pasta. Nothing. Sandwich. He pushed it away without even looking. "What do you want to eat, Ethan?" asked gently. He just made this low humming sound, staring at the wall like I wasn't even there. Eventually I gave him some crackers. He ate 3. That was it. Bedtime was even worse. When I tried to help him brush his teeth, he screamed. Not cried. Screamed. Like I was hurting him. I stepped back immediately. Okay, I said, raising my hands. "We won't do that tonight." I brought him to the guest room, tried to tuck him in. He threw the blanket off. I tried again. He screamed. So I left the blanket at the end of the bed and slowly walked out. That night, he didn't sleep. I know because I didn't sleep either. All night long I could hear him. That same low humming sound. Over and over again. Like he was stuck in some loop I couldn't reach him from. The next morning I called Rachel. No answer. I left a message. Rachel, honey, please call me. I need to know what Ethan eats, his routines. Anything. Nothing. I called again that night. Still nothing. Monday came. Then Sunday went. No call. No message. No explanation. That weekend she asked for turned into a week. Then two. And that's when I realized the truth. My daughter wasn't coming back. She didn't need a break. She had left her child with me. And walked away from him completely. I took Ethan to a doctor. Got him evaluated properly. Autism. Confirmed. And just like that, 68 years old, I became a full-time parent again. But this time, I was completely unprepared. I had to learn everything from scratch. I learned that he needed the same breakfast every single day. Scrambled eggs. Toast cut diagonally. Nothing touching on the plate. I learned that if I took a different route to therapy, he would panic. I learned not to touch him unless he allowed it. I learned how to sit in silence. And just observe. And slowly, very slowly, things began to change. One morning about 2 weeks after he came to live with me, I walked into the living room and saw him on the floor, surrounded by toy cars I had bought him. But he wasn't playing. He was organizing them. Perfectly. First I thought it was random. But then I looked closer. They were arranged by color. Not just basic colors, but shades. Red, slightly orange-red. Then orange. Then yellow. Each one placed so precisely it took me a moment to even understand what I was looking at. It was beautiful. Ethan, I whispered. That's amazing. He didn't respond. Didn't look at me. Just kept arranging. But in that moment, I saw something. Something everyone else would probably miss. This child wasn't broken. He just saw the world differently. And I made a decision right there. I was going to learn his world, instead of forcing him into mine. Because one thing became very clear to me that day. The world had already given up on him. But I wasn't going to. No matter how hard it got. No matter how long it took. I wasn't leaving him. Not like she did. The first time Ethan spoke to me, it broke something inside my chest I didn't even know was still holding together. But before that moment came, there were years of silence, years of routine, years of learning how to live inside a world that didn't work the way most people expected it to. After Rachel disappeared, life didn't suddenly become meaningful or inspirational. It became exhausting. Every single day felt like I was guessing. And every mistake had consequences. If I cut his toast the wrong way, he wouldn't eat. If I turned on the vacuum without warning, he'd panic. If I changed even the smallest part of his routine, he'd shut down completely. So I stopped trying to fix things. And I started paying attention instead. Same breakfast. Same time. Same chair at the table. Same yellow cup. That yellow cup became part of our life in a way I never expected. It was always there. Always in the same spot. And somehow, that consistency made Ethan feel safe. And if he felt safe, everything else got a little easier. Not easy. Just easier. By December, about a month after he came to live with me, he had stopped screaming as much. He still didn't talk. Still didn't look at me. But he would sit in the same room as me. That was progress. On Christmas Eve I decided to bake cookies. Not because I thought he'd help, but because I wanted the house to feel warm. Normal. Like a home. The kitchen filled with the smell of vanilla and butter. I rolled the dough, cut out shapes, placed them on the tray. And Ethan sat at the table. watching, not helping, just watching. And honestly, that was enough for me. Then the phone rang. My heart jumped. I rushed to answer it. "Hello, Mom." Rachel. Her voice sounded tired, flat, like she was already somewhere else in her mind. "Rachel. Thank God. When are you coming to get him? I need to know what's going on. I can't keep doing this without. I can't do it anymore." Her words cut right through me. "What?" I tried. I really did. "But I can't handle him." I felt like the ground disappeared under me. "Rachel, he's your son." "I know," she said, her voice cracking slightly. "But I just can't. He's better off with you." "Rachel, wait." But the line went dead. Just like that. No explanation. No apology. Nothing. I stood there holding the phone, completely frozen, while the smell of burning cookies slowly filled the kitchen. I turned around too late. The tray was black, smoke rising. I turned off the oven, pulled them out, and just stared at them. Ruined. Just like everything else in that moment. I slid down to the floor, my back against the cabinet. And I cried. Not quietly. Not gracefully. I cried like someone who had just realized their life was never going back to what it was. After a minute, I felt something near me. I looked up. Ethan. Standing in the doorway. He was looking at me. Really looking. For the first time. No rocking. No humming. Just watching me. Then, without saying a word, he walked over to the counter, picked up that yellow cup, back, and gently placed it on the floor next to me. I stared at it, then at him. My throat tightened. That was his way of saying something. I didn't know exactly what, but I felt it. And for the first time since he arrived, I didn't feel completely alone. The years after that didn't suddenly get easier. But they became structured, predictable. And for Ethan, that meant everything. When he turned 6, he became obsessed with magnetic letters. Not words, patterns. He would spend hours arranging them on the refrigerator. At first, I didn't understand what he was doing. But then I noticed something. They weren't random. They followed rules, sequences, logic. His logic. Then came the notebooks. Cheap little notebooks from the dollar store. He filled them with symbols at first. Lines, circles, marks. Over and over again. I asked his therapist once, "Should I be worried?" She smiled gently and said, "He's organizing his world." So I let him. Notebook after notebook. Page after page. Until one day, those symbols became letters. Then words. Small ones at first. Egg. Toast. Home. And I'll never forget the day he wrote his first full sentence. He was 8 years old. Sitting at the kitchen table while I made breakfast. Same as always. Toast. Yellow cup. I turned around. And he was writing in his notebook. Carefully. Slowly. Then he slid it slightly toward me. I walked over. Looked down. And my heart stopped. Why did Mom leave? I couldn't breathe. For a second I just stood there, staring at those words. 3 years. 3 years of silence. And that was the first full question he asked me. I sat down across from him, my hands trembling. He didn't look at me. Just waited. Could have lied. Made it easier. Softer. Kinder. But something told me. He didn't need comfort. He needed truth. She said she couldn't handle it, I said quietly. He nodded once. Just once. Like he had expected that answer. Then he went back to writing. Like nothing had happened. But I couldn't move. I got up slowly. Finished making breakfast. Placed his plate in front of him. And then walked into the bathroom. Closed the door. And cried. Because no matter how strong I tried to be, some truths just hurt too much to say out loud. But from that day on, something changed. Ethan started speaking more. Not a lot. Not like other kids. But enough. Short sentences. Direct questions. Clear thoughts. And every word he said felt important, like he didn't waste language the way the rest of us did. By the time he was 9, the school called me in for a meeting, and I already knew what it was about. They want to move him. Special classroom. Better support. I had heard it all before, but this time, I wasn't backing down, because I had seen what they hadn't. I had seen how his mind worked, how he noticed patterns nobody else could see, how he understood things in ways that didn't fit into their neat little systems. And I knew one thing for sure. They weren't trying to help him. They were trying to move him out of the way. And I wasn't going to let that happen. Not after everything he had already been through. Not after being abandoned. Not after fighting so hard just to exist in this world. I walked into that meeting ready for a fight. And I didn't realize it yet. But that was just the beginning. Because what Ethan was becoming, what he was quietly building inside that mind of his, was something none of us were prepared for. Not the school. Not the system. Not even me. I walked into that school meeting with one thing on my mind. They were not taking my grandson away from a normal life just because he made them uncomfortable. The conference room felt smaller than I remembered. Bright lights. Too bright. I could already see Ethan reacting to it. His hands slightly tense. His eyes avoiding the ceiling. I gently placed my hand near his. Not touching, just close enough. Or signal. I'm here. He didn't look at me. But his shoulders relaxed just a little. That was enough. Across the table sat the principal, Ethan's teacher, a school psychologist, and someone from special education. 4 adults. All prepared. All with folders. All ready to explain to me why my grandson didn't belong. Mrs. Cooper, the principal began, folding his hands like he was about to deliver bad news wrapped in politeness. We believe Ethan would be better supported in our specialized learning environment. There it was. I leaned back slightly. Is he failing? Asked. The teacher hesitated. No. Academically, he's actually ahead. Then what's the problem? They all exchanged looks. The psychologist spoke next. He struggles socially. He doesn't engage with other students. He avoids eye contact. He becomes overwhelmed in group settings. He's autistic, I said calmly. That's not new information. This environment may be too stimulating for him, the special education coordinator added. A smaller classroom would reduce stress. For who? Asked. Silence. I leaned forward. For him, or for you? The room went quiet, because they knew exactly what I meant. The teacher cleared her throat. He doesn't participate in group activities. Does he complete his work? Yes. Does he understand the material? Yes. Then he's not the problem, I said. They didn't like that. I could see it in their faces. The principal gave me that look. Polite, controlled, slightly annoyed. Mrs. Cooper, education isn't just about academics. It's about social development. And forcing him into a room where he doesn't belong is going to help that. Yes. He'll be with students who have similar challenges. Students who are behind him academically, I said. Students who will slow him down. The psychologist leaned forward. This isn't about slowing him down. It's about meeting him where he is. No, I said quietly. It's about lowering expectations. That hit hard. No one spoke for a few seconds. Then I opened my folder. Organized. Every report. Every note. Every piece of proof I had collected over the years. I started laying papers on the table one by one. Reading level, 2 grades above. Math, perfect scores. Therapy progress. Consistent improvement. I slid them toward the principal. You want to move him because he doesn't act the way you want him to act. That's not. Yes, it is, I cut in. He doesn't smile on command. He doesn't make eye contact when you expect him to. He doesn't pretend to be something he's not. I looked each one of them in the eye. But he learns. He understands. And he's trying. Silence again. Then the principal sighed. We can create an accommodation plan, he said finally. But if things don't improve, they will, I said. I didn't actually know that. But I knew one thing. Giving up on him wasn't an option. The meeting ended with paperwork and polite smiles that didn't mean anything. But Ethan stayed in his class. That night, I spread all the documents across the kitchen table, organizing them, color-coded, labeled, just like I used to do as a teacher. Ethan walked in quietly and stood beside me. "What are you doing?" he asked. I looked up at him. "Making sure no one forgets what you can do." He stepped closer, looked at the papers, studied them, then pointed. "These are in the wrong order," and blinked. "What?" "The therapy records," he said. "They should be sorted by type first, then date." I looked at the stack and realized he was right. "Show me," I said. He sat down, and in less than 10 minutes, he reorganized everything. Perfectly. Clean. Logical. Better than anything I would have done. I just sat there watching him, his hands moving quickly, his focus completely locked in. That's when it hit me again. His brain didn't just work differently. It worked deeper, sharper. "That's really good, Ethan," I said softly. He nodded once, didn't smile, but I could tell he felt it. Over the next year, something started changing in him. Not outwardly. He was still quiet, still reserved, still kept to himself. But his awareness, that grew. Yes. We'd be driving and he'd suddenly say, "The traffic light on 4th Street stays red longer than the others." At the grocery store, he'd look at the receipt and say, "They charged 3 cents extra for the apples." And every single time, he was right. One afternoon after a parent-teacher meeting, I was driving home. The principal had smiled the whole time, said all the right things, but something about it felt off. I didn't say anything, but from the back seat Ethan spoke. "He doesn't like me." I glanced in the mirror. "That's not true," I said automatically. "He was being nice." Ethan shook his head slightly. "No. What do you mean? When people smile for real, their eyes change," he said. His didn't. I didn't respond. 'Cause deep down, I knew he was right. He wasn't missing social cues. He was seeing through them. And that made people uncomfortable. By the time he turned 11, the school had another issue. Course they did. He corrected the teacher in class, they told me. Decide. Was he wrong? No, but then what's the problem? He embarrassed her. I closed my eyes for a second. Because there it was again. Not about learning. About control. That night at dinner, Ethan asked me something. "Why do people want me to be different?" Put my fork down. Took a breath. 'Cause that question was heavier than anything he'd asked before. "They're not used to people who see things differently," I said slowly. He nodded, like that answer made sense to him. And maybe it did. A few weeks later, he asked me for something unusual. "My birth certificate," he said. I frowned. "Why?" "I want to see it." I brought it out. He studied it carefully, then asked for more. School records, medical files, anything with his name on it. "Ethan, what are you doing?" I asked. "I want to make sure everything is correct," he said. That was it. No emotion. No explanation. Just certainty. So I helped him. We scanned everything. Every document. Every record. He organized it all on his tablet. Folders. Categories. Labels I didn't fully understand. "What are you building?" I asked one day. "A system," he said. "So nothing gets lost." Smiled. thinking he was just trying to understand his past, trying to make sense of his life, trying to process what happened with his mother. I had no idea that he was doing something much bigger than that, something far more important. Because while I thought he was just organizing memories, Ethan was actually building proof. Proof of everything. Proof of what was real. Proof of what wasn't. And one day, that system he was quietly creating was going to change everything. Looking back now, I should have realized something was different the moment Ethan discovered coding. Because that wasn't just interest. That was obsession. The kind that changes everything. It started the summer he turned 12. I remember walking into the kitchen one afternoon and seeing him sitting there with my old laptop. The same one that took forever just to turn on. The screen was filled with lines of text. Symbols. Numbers. Things I couldn't even begin to understand. "What are you doing?" I asked. He didn't look up. "Learning Python." And blinked. "Python like the snake. It's a programming language." Course it was. I walked a little closer, looked over his shoulder. None of it made sense to me. "Is this for school?" "No." "Then why are you learning it?" "I want to." That was it. That was always it with Ethan. He didn't need a reason that made sense to anyone else. If something made sense to him, that was enough. So I didn't interrupt. I didn't question. I just let him be. That entire summer, while other kids were outside playing, swimming, going to camps, Ethan stayed inside. That table. On that laptop. Coding. Hours and hours every single day. I'd bring him lunch. He'd eat without looking away from the screen. His yellow cup always sitting next to him. Full. Because he'd forget to drink it. Sometimes I'd just stand there and watch him. Not understanding what he was doing, but knowing it mattered. By the end of the summer he started showing me things. "Look," he'd say. I'd walk over. He'd run a program. Something would happen on the screen. Files would move. Numbers would change. Processes I couldn't follow. "This one sorts files by date," he explained once. "This one finds duplicates. This one checks if something was changed." I didn't understand any of it. But I understood one thing. He was building something. Something real. "That's amazing, Ethan," I told him. He nodded. Like it was normal. Like it wasn't anything special. That's when I made a decision. I took the last bit of savings I had. And bought him a proper computer. Not that slow old laptop. Real one. Best. Powerful. Something that wouldn't hold him back. At the store, the man behind the counter smiled at Ethan. "What are you going to use it for?" he asked. "Programming," Ethan said. "How old are you?" 12. The man chuckled. "That's a good age to start." Ethan didn't react. Didn't smile. Just waited. Because for him, this wasn't starting. He was already deep into it. When we got home, he set everything up in his room. Within hours. No help. No instructions. Just figured it out. I stood in the doorway watching him. "Just promise me something," I said. He glanced at me. "Eat your meals," I said. "And sleep." He nodded. "I will." He didn't. Not really. That's when the late nights started. At first I thought it was just excitement. Phase. But it didn't stop. Weeks went by. Then months. I'd wake up in the middle of the night. See light coming from under his door. Hear the soft clicking of his keyboard. Sometimes I'd open the door quietly. "Ethan, it's late. I'm almost done." He was never almost done. One night, around 1 a.m., I brought him tea. His room was cold. 3 screens glowing in the dark. Code everywhere. "What are you making?" I asked. He paused for a second, then said something that stayed with me. "Something that tells the truth." I frowned. "What do you mean?" He looked at the screen again. "Something that shows what's real and what's fake." I didn't fully understand. But I nodded anyway. 'Cause I trusted him. Even when I didn't understand him. A few months later, he called me into his room. "I want to show you something." I sat down on his bed. He pulled up a file on the screen. "Watch." He ran a program. Numbers appeared. Long strings of them. "This is a document," he said. "And this is its signature." I nodded, pretending to follow. Then he changed one word in the document. Ran the program again. Different numbers appeared. "The signature changed," he said. "So you can tell if someone edits something?" Yes. "Yes." I stared at the screen, still not fully understanding, but feeling something shift. Like I was standing at the edge of something important. And didn't even realize how big it was yet. "That means no one can change it without you knowing?" Yes. Ethan nodded. "Yes. And if they try, it will show." I sat there quietly. Because suddenly, this wasn't just about coding anymore. This was about truth, proof, control. Things that, in the wrong hands, could be dangerous. But in Ethan's hands, felt different, safer, cleaner. Like he wasn't trying to manipulate anything. He was trying to protect it. "What made you think of this?" asked. He didn't answer right away. Just stared at the screen. Then said quietly, "Because people lie." That hit me harder than I expected. Because I knew exactly where that came from. Rachel. The school. Every adult who had ever smiled at him while quietly trying to move him out of the way. He wasn't building something random. He was building something because of what he had lived through. Something that made sure what happened to him couldn't be hidden. From that day on, I started paying closer attention. Not to the code. I still didn't understand that. But to him. To how focused he was. How precise. How intentional everything felt. By the time he turned 13, his system had grown into something much bigger. Folders turned into structures. Programs turned into tools. And those tools started connecting to each other. "What does this one do?" asked one evening. "It tracks changes," he said. "In what?" "Everything." I blinked. "What do you mean everything?" "Files. Records. Logs. Data." I didn't like how broad that sounded. "Ethan, you're not getting into anything you shouldn't, right?" He finally looked at me. Straight in the eyes. "No." And I believed him. Because Ethan didn't lie. He didn't bend truth. He didn't twist things to make people feel better. If anything, he was too honest. And that honesty was about to cause problems. Started at school. Of course it did. One afternoon I got a call from the principal. Again. "Mrs. Cooper, we need you to come in." My stomach dropped immediately. "What happened?" "It's about Ethan." That was all he said. When I arrived, the atmosphere felt different and uncomfortable, like something had already gone too far. Ethan was sitting in the office. Quiet. Hands folded in his lap. The principal and another man I didn't recognize stood nearby. "What's going on?" asked. The principal cleared his throat. "Ethan accessed school records." My heart skipped. "What?" Ethan spoke calmly. "They were not secured." I looked at him. "Ethan, what did you do?" "I checked them," he said. "Checked them how?" "I found inconsistencies." The other man stepped forward. "I'm from the district," he said. "Your grandson bypassed multiple security layers and accessed confidential student data." My chest tightened. "Ethan," I whispered. "I didn't change anything," he said quickly. "I only looked." "That's still a serious violation," the man said firmly. "What inconsistencies?" asked. Ethan reached into his bag, pulled out his tablet, tapped a few times, then turned the screen toward me. "I found altered records," he said. "Grades changed after submission. Attendance logs edited. Disciplinary reports removed." I stared at the screen, confused, overwhelmed. That doesn't make sense, I said. It does, he replied. The district man stepped in again. This is not the issue. The issue is unauthorized access. But Ethan didn't look at him. He looked at me. They were lying, he said. That word again. Lying. The room went silent. Who was lying? Asked slowly. Ethan hesitated, then said something that changed everything. The school. I felt the air leave my lungs. The principal's face hardened immediately. That's enough, he said sharply. But it wasn't enough. Because Ethan wasn't guessing. He was certain. And when Ethan was certain, he was right. I didn't accuse anyone, Ethan said calmly. I verified. The district man crossed his arms. You hacked into a protected system. I tested it, Ethan corrected. You broke the rules. They were already broken. A line. That line made the entire room shift. 'Cause suddenly, this wasn't just about a kid breaking rules. This was about someone exposing something. And they didn't like that. Not one bit. I stepped closer to Ethan. Put my hand near his shoulder. Not touching. Just there. What exactly did you find? I asked quietly. He looked at me. Then at the screen. Then back at me. And said 3 words that made my heart drop. Not just students. I felt a chill run through my body. What does that mean? He turned the tablet slightly. Scrolled. More data. More files. More things I couldn't fully understand. But could feel. Something was wrong. Very wrong. Financial records, he said. Budget changes. Numbers that don't match. The principal slammed his hand on the desk. That's enough. This meeting is over. But it wasn't over. Not even close. Because whatever Ethan had found, it wasn't small. It wasn't a mistake. It was something they didn't want anyone to see. Now, my grandson had seen all of it. The ride home that day was silent. Not the peaceful kind of silence we were used to. This one felt heavy. Like something was sitting between us. Something neither of us could ignore anymore. I kept my eyes on the road, my hands tight on the steering wheel. My mind racing. Ethan, I finally said, my voice low, controlled. I need you to tell me exactly what you did. I accessed the system, he said calmly from the back seat. I know that part, I said. How? They left an open port. Blinked. I don't know what that means. It means they didn't secure it properly. Course they didn't. I let out a slow breath. And you just found it. Yes. On purpose. Small pause. Yes. That answer hit differently. 'Cause now I understood something important. This wasn't an accident. He wasn't just curious. He was looking. Looking for something. Why? Asked. Another pause. Longer this time. Then he said quietly. Because things didn't match. I felt a chill run through me. What things? The way they talk. And the way things are recorded. I didn't respond. 'Cause deep down, I'd felt that too. The smiles that didn't reach their eyes. The reports that sounded polished, too polished. The way they kept trying to move him out of sight. I pulled into the driveway and turned off the engine. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then I turned slightly in my seat. Ethan listened to me carefully, I said. What you did. They're going to call it hacking. I know. You could get in serious trouble. I didn't change anything. That doesn't matter to them, I said gently. Rules like that. They don't care about intentions. He didn't respond. Just stared straight ahead. Processing. Always processing. We need to be careful now, I added. Very careful. I saved everything, he said. My heart skipped. What do you mean? I made copies. I closed my eyes for a second. Of course he did. Of course he did. Ethan. They can't delete it, he continued. Even if they try. I turned fully toward him now. Where did you save it? Multiple places. That didn't comfort me. That terrified me. Because now this wasn't just about what he saw. It was about what he had. Proof. And proof can make powerful people nervous. That night I couldn't sleep. Again. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at nothing, replaying everything in my head. What if they came after him? What if they pressed charges? What if I had failed to protect him? At around midnight, I heard his door open. Soft footsteps. Then he walked into the kitchen. You're awake, he said. So are you. He sat across from me. Same spot he always used. The yellow cup still there like it had been all these years. I need to show you something, he said. My stomach tightened. Okay. He opened his tablet, tapped a few times, then turned the screen toward me. This is the school's financial report, he said. I nodded slowly. And this is the original version. He tapped again. Another document appeared. Almost identical. Almost. What am I looking at? Yes. He pointed. Look at the numbers here, and here. I leaned closer. They were different. Slightly. But different. Okay. They changed it, he said. Who? I don't know. But someone did. Sat back, trying to make sense of it. Why would they do that? He didn't answer right away. Then said something that made my stomach drop. To hide where the money went. The room felt colder suddenly. What money? School funds. I stared at him. You're telling me someone is stealing from the school? I'm saying the records don't match, he replied. Careful. Precise. Always careful. But yes. I pressed my hands together, trying to steady myself. This is serious, Ethan. I know. No. I mean really serious. I know. He wasn't scared. That's what worried me. He didn't see fear the way most people did. He saw patterns, truth, logic. And right now, all of that was pointing to something dangerous. What are you going to do with this? Yes. I don't know yet. That answer didn't sit well with me. Because, I don't know from Ethan, usually meant he was still thinking. And when he was thinking, he was already 10 steps ahead of everyone else. We don't do anything yet, I said firmly. We wait. He looked at me. Not arguing. Just evaluating. Okay, he said. But something in his eyes told me. He wasn't done. Not even close. The next few days felt off. Different. Too quiet. Too normal. Which made it worse. At school, everything continued like nothing had happened. No calls. No warnings. No follow-up. And that scared me more than anything. Because people who have nothing to hide, they don't stay quiet. 3 days later I noticed something strange. Car. Parked across the street. Same spot. Same time. 2 days in a row. I tried to ignore it. Told myself I was overthinking. But on the third day, it was still there. My chest tightened. That night at dinner, I kept glancing at the window. Ethan noticed. You saw it too, he said. Froze. What? The car. I slowly looked at him. You noticed? Yes. Since when? Yesterday. Of course he did. Do you think it's connected? I asked quietly. Yes. No hesitation. No doubt. Just certainty. I swallowed hard. Ethan. They're watching, he said. Those 2 words sent a chill straight through me. I stood up immediately, walked to the window, pulled the curtain slightly. Car was there. Dark. Ill. Unmoving. My heart started pounding. This is getting out of hand, I whispered. Ethan remained calm. They don't know what I have, he said. Or maybe they do, I replied. That thought hit both of us at the same time. And suddenly, everything changed. Because if they knew, if they had even the slightest idea, Then this wasn't just about a school anymore. This was about something bigger. Something hidden. Something that didn't want to be exposed. I turned back to Ethan. We need to leave. He nodded once. No questions. No hesitation. 'Cause he understood. Whatever he had uncovered. Whatever truth he had found. Someone out there didn't want it to come out. And they were willing to watch us. To make sure it didn't. I didn't even pack properly. That's how fast everything shifted. 1 minute I was standing in my kitchen staring at that car across the street. And the next I was throwing clothes into a bag with shaking hands, trying to think clearly and failing. Just the essentials, I muttered to myself. Just what we need. But what did we need? Clothes, documents, food, or something else entirely? Ethan walked into the room, calm as ever, holding his tablet and a small backpack. I'm ready, he said. I turned to him. You packed already? Yes. Of course he had. What did you bring? Everything important. I didn't ask him to explain. That point. I trusted his definition of important more than my own. I grabbed my purse, my coat, and the folder of documents I had spent years organizing. His records, his history, his proof of existence in a world that kept trying to mislabel him. As we stepped outside, I forced myself not to look directly at the car. But I felt it. That presence. That stillness. Like someone inside was watching every move we made. We got into my car, locked the doors, and I started the engine. Don't drive the usual way, Ethan said. I looked at him. You think they'll follow us? Yes. No hesitation. No doubt. Just like always. So I turned left instead of right. Then another turn. Then another. Driving routes I hadn't used in years. Watching the rearview mirror every few seconds. First, nothing. There, Ethan said quietly. My heart jumped. Dark car. 3 vehicles behind us. Same one. Keeping distance. But staying. They're following, I whispered. Yes. My hands tightened on the wheel. Okay. Okay, think Vivian, think. I took a sudden turn into a gas station. Pulled in quickly. A car drove past us. Didn't stop. Didn't slow down. Just kept going. I exhaled sharply. Maybe we're just being paranoid, I said. Ethan didn't respond. He was watching the road. Waiting. 10 seconds. 20. 30. The car turned around. And came back. Slowly. My stomach dropped. They confirmed it, Ethan said. That was it. That was all I needed. Okay, I said, starting the engine again. We're not staying here. We drove. No destination. Just away. Away from the house. Away from whatever this had become. Where are we going? Ethan asked. Thought for a second. Then one name came to mind. My sister, I said. Carol. I hadn't seen her in years. We weren't close. But right now, she was the only person I could think of who might help. She lives 2 hours from here, I added. Ethan nodded. That's good. Why? Distance. Course. We got back on the road. Kept driving. Checking mirrors. Changing lanes. Trying to stay unpredictable. The car stayed behind us. Not close. Not aggressive. But consistent. And that consistency was terrifying. About an hour into the drive, my phone rang. Unknown number. I stared at it. Didn't answer. Rang again. And again. And again. They want you to pick up, Ethan said. I'm not going to. Put it on speaker. I hesitated. And answered. Hello. Silence. Then a man's voice. Controlled. You should go home, Mrs. Cooper. My blood ran cold. Who is this? You're making a mistake. I tightened my grip on the wheel. Stop following us. We're trying to help you. No, I said firmly. You're trying to scare us. Small pause. Your grandson accessed information that doesn't belong to him. I glanced at Ethan. He was listening, focused. He didn't change anything, I said. That's not the point. Then what is the point? Snap. Another pause. Longer this time. Then the voice dropped slightly. Lower. Colder. The point is, some things aren't meant to be found. A chill ran through my entire body. That's not your decision to make, I said. It already has been. Blick. The line went dead. I lowered the phone slowly, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it. They know, I whispered. Yes, Ethan said. They know everything. No, he replied calmly. They don't know everything. I looked at him. What do you mean? They don't know where I stored it. I swallowed. And they want to find out. Yes. That word hung in the air between us. Heavy. Real. Dangerous. We drove the rest of the way in silence. No music. No talking. Just the sound of the engine. And the constant awareness that we weren't alone. By the time we reached Carol's house, it was dark. I pulled into the driveway and turned off the engine. The car behind us kept going. Didn't stop. Didn't turn. Just disappeared into the night. Now, I sat there for a moment, breathing, trying to calm my hands. We're here, I said. Ethan nodded. We got out. I walked up to the door and knocked. Few seconds later it opened. Carol stood there, older, surprised, confused. Vivian, she said. What are you doing here? I looked at her. And for the first time since this all started, my voice cracked. I need your help. She looked past me at Ethan, then back at me. And without another question, she stepped aside. Come in. The door closed behind us. And for the first time in days, felt like we might be safe. But deep down, I knew something we couldn't escape. This wasn't over. Not even close. Because whatever Ethan had uncovered, whatever truth was hidden inside those files, someone out there was willing to follow us, and threaten us, just to keep it buried. And people don't go that far, unless what they're hiding is much bigger than anyone expects. Carol's house felt different. Not just because I hadn't been there in years, but because for the first time since all of this started, there were walls between us and whoever was out there. Locked door, closed curtains, distance, and yet, I still couldn't relax. Sit down, Carol said gently, guiding me toward the couch. You look like you've seen a ghost. I let out a shaky breath. Something like that. Ethan stood near the doorway, scanning the room. Not nervous, not overwhelmed, just observing. Always observing. Carol noticed. That's Ethan, she asked quietly. He nodded. He's grown. Yes, I said softly. More than anyone realizes. She offered him a small smile. Hi, Ethan. He gave a slight nod. That was enough. Carol looked back at me. All right, tell me what's going on. And so I did. Everything. From the school, to the records, to the car, to the phone call. I didn't leave anything out. By the time I finished, the room was silent. Carol leaned back slowly, processing it all. That's a lot, she said. That's one way to put it. She looked at Ethan. You really found all that? Yes. No hesitation. No doubt. Just truth. Carol shook her head slightly. I always knew you were smart, she said. But this isn't just smart, I added. This is something else. Ethan didn't react. He never did when people talked about him like that. Carol stood up. Okay. First things first. You're staying here tonight. Are you sure? Yes. Vivian, she said firmly. If someone's following you, you don't go back out there. He nodded. Relieved. But still uneasy. Thank you. She gave a small smile. We'll figure it out in the morning. Morning. That felt far away. Ethan sat at the dining table, already opening his tablet. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Checking something." "Ethan, maybe you should rest." "I will later." Course. I watched him for a moment. The way his fingers moved. Precise. Rest. Like he was already 10 steps ahead again. "Are they still tracking us?" I asked quietly. He didn't look up. "No." "How do you know?" "They would be closer." That answer didn't exactly comfort me. But it was something. Later that night, Carol showed us to the guest room. 2 beds, clean sheets, soft lighting. "Get some sleep," she said. He nodded. But sleep wasn't easy. I lay there staring at the ceiling, listening to every small sound, every creak, every shift of the house. Ethan, on the other hand, was awake. I could see the faint glow of his tablet under the blanket. "Ethan," I whispered. "I know," he said quietly. "I'm almost done." "You said that yesterday too." "I mean it this time." I sighed softly. "What are you doing?" "Was making sure we're safe." I didn't ask more, because I wasn't sure I wanted to know. Eventually, I must have fallen asleep, because the next thing I remember was the sound of voices, loud, dark, coming from the living room. I sat up immediately, my heart racing. Ethan was already awake, listening. "What is that?" I whispered. He didn't answer. He just stood up, moved toward the door, carefully, followed. As we got closer, I could hear Carol's voice. Angry. "You can't just show up here." A man's voice responded. Controlled. "We just need to talk." My stomach dropped. I looked at Ethan. "They found us," I whispered. He nodded once. We stepped into the hallway. And that's when I saw them. 2 men. Standing in Carol's living room. Clean. Professional. Like they belonged anywhere they wanted to be. But not here. Not in this moment. Carol stood between them and the hallway, blocking them, protecting us. "Vivian," she said quickly when she saw me. "Go back to the room." "No," I said. "What's going on?" One of the men stepped forward slightly. "We're not here to cause problems." "Then leave," Carol snapped. He ignored her. "Look straight at me." "Mrs. Cooper," he said calmly, "we need to discuss your grandson." My chest tightened. "You've already said enough," I replied. "This doesn't have to be difficult." "It already is." He took another step. Low. Measured. "Your grandson accessed sensitive data." "He didn't change anything." "That's not the concern." "Then what is?" Shot back. "Was. What he found." There it was. The truth. Out in the open. They weren't here because he broke a rule. They were here because he saw something he wasn't supposed to see. Ethan stepped forward slightly. From behind me. "He has it," the second man said quietly. Both of them looked at him now. Focused. Interested. Dangerous. "Ethan," the first man said, softening his tone. "You're very talented." Ethan didn't respond. "We just want you to delete the files," the man continued. Silence. Heavy. "No," Ethan said. Just one word. But it hit like a wall. The man's expression changed. Slightly. Less friendly. "Keeping those files won't help you," he said. "It shows the truth," Ethan replied. "That's not your responsibility." "Yes, it is." I felt my heart pounding. Because I knew. Ethan wasn't going to back down. Not now. Not ever. The man sighed. Like he had expected this. Then reached into his jacket. My entire body tensed. But he didn't pull out a weapon. He pulled out a folder. Set it on the table. "What's that?" I asked. "An agreement," he said. "Sign it, and this all goes away." I didn't move. "An agreement for what?" "For your silence." The room went still. Completely still. 'Cause now, There was no pretending anymore. No hiding behind rules. No fake concern. This was real. They wanted to bury it. Whatever it was. And they were willing to come into our lives. Our home. To make sure it stayed buried. I looked at Ethan. Then at the folder. Then back at the man. And in that moment, I realized something that changed everything. This wasn't just about a school. This wasn't just about money. This was bigger. Much bigger. And whatever Ethan had uncovered, it was worth enough. For people like this. To risk everything. I stared at that folder on the table. And for a moment everything inside me went quiet. Not calm. Not peaceful. It was still. 'Cause I understood exactly what it meant. That wasn't just paper. That was a warning. Line. And once we crossed it, there was no going back. Open it, the man said. His voice was calm. Almost polite. Like this was a normal conversation. Like he hadn't just shown up uninvited in the middle of the night asking us to give up the truth. I didn't move. But Ethan did. He stepped forward. Reached for the folder. And before I could stop him, he opened it. Page after page. Legal language. Cold. Precise. I didn't need to read every word to understand. Non-disclosure. Confidentiality. Silence. Permanent silence. What happens if we don't sign it? Yes. The man didn't hesitate. That would be unfortunate. I felt my chest tighten. That's not an answer. It's the only one you need. Carol stepped forward again, her voice sharp. You need to leave. Now. The second man finally spoke, quieter than the first. You don't understand the situation. Then explain it, I said. Another pause. Then the first man looked directly at Ethan. And said something that made my blood run cold. The data you accessed isn't just from the school. The room froze. Felt it. Carol felt it. Even Ethan. Went still for just a second. What does that mean? Asked slowly. The man exhaled. Like he had already said too much. There are systems connected to that network, he said. Financial systems. Administrative systems. My heart started pounding. How big is this? He didn't answer directly. But he didn't deny it either. And that silence told me everything. Ethan spoke. Quiet. Controlled. You moved money through layered accounts, he said. Both men looked at him now. Really looked. You adjusted school reports to hide it, Ethan continued. No reaction. No denial. Just stillness. You thought no one would notice, he finished. The first man tilted his head slightly. Studying him. Most people wouldn't. That wasn't a denial. That was confirmation. And suddenly, this wasn't just something small. This was organized, planned, hidden across systems. And my grandson had uncovered it. I felt a wave of fear hit me. But right behind it, something else. Anger. Pure, steady anger. You're stealing, I said. The man didn't flinch. That's a very simple way of putting it. It's the correct way. He smiled slightly. But there was no warmth in it. This is bigger than you think. I already know it is, I replied. He stepped closer. Not aggressive, but intentional. Mrs. Cooper, people much more powerful than you are involved in this. There it was. The truth. Loud. Finally. This is your chance to walk away, he added. Take it. I looked at the folder again. Then at Ethan. He was calm. Focused, unshaken. And in that moment, I realized something. He wasn't scared because he already understood something I was just beginning to accept. This wasn't about fear. This was about truth. And once you see the truth, you can't pretend it isn't there. What happens if we sign? Yes. You go back to your life, the man said. No more problems. And if we don't? You won't like the alternative. Silence filled the room again. Heavy. Unavoidable. Then Ethan spoke. They can't erase it. All eyes turned to him. I stored it in multiple places, he continued. Encrypted. Distributed. The second man frowned slightly. You're bluffing. Ethan shook his head. No. Where? Ethan didn't answer. Of course he didn't. That was the first time I saw uncertainty in their faces. Just a flicker. But it was there. And that flicker changed everything. 'Cause now, they weren't in control anymore. You're a smart kid, the first man said slowly. But you're in over your head. Ethan looked at him. Great. Teddy. No. Just that. One word. But this time, it didn't sound small. It sounded final. The man studied him for a long moment, then closed the folder. Picked it up. Think about it, he said. We'll be in touch. No, I said firmly. He paused. You're not coming back here. Small smile. We won't need to. And with that, they turned, walked to the door, and left. Just like that. No shouting. No threats. Nothing loud. Which somehow made it worse. 'Cause people like that don't need to raise their voices. The door closed. And the house went silent again. But this silence felt different. Heavier. More dangerous. Carol locked the door immediately. Turned to me. What the hell was that? I didn't answer right away. Because I was still processing it all. They're not just covering something up, I said finally. They're protecting something big. Ethan nodded. Yes. Carol looked at him. What do we do now? That question hung in the air. 'Cause for the first time, we all understood. There was no going back. No pretending this didn't happen. No normal life waiting for us on the other side. Just one choice. Move forward. Or back down. I looked at Ethan. Really looked at him. This boy who had been abandoned. Misunderstood. Pushed aside his entire life. And still chose truth. Still chose to stand. What do you want to do? Asked him. He didn't hesitate. We show it. My heart pounded. To who? The people who can't ignore it. I swallowed. 'Cause that meant one thing. Exposure. Public. Visible. Unstoppable. Once it was out there, no one could bury it again. Are you sure? Yes. Yes. No fear. No doubt. Just certainty. I took a deep breath. Then nodded slowly. Okay, I said. We do it your way. And in that moment, everything changed. 'Cause now, we weren't running anymore. We were about to fight back. And once we did, there was no telling how far this would go. The moment we made that decision, there was no turning back. No safety net. No quiet way out. Just truth. And whatever came with it. I didn't sleep that night. None of us did. Carol stayed in the living room, pacing, checking the windows every few minutes like she expected those men to come back at any second. Ethan sat at the table. Focused. Working. Always working. And me. I just watched him. Because somewhere along the way, that little boy who couldn't even speak had become the strongest person in the room. Walk me through it, I said quietly. He didn't look up. I made copies of everything, he said. I know that part. I separated them, he continued. Different locations. Different access points. I nodded slowly. Meaning, no single place has all the data. I let that sink in. So even if they find one, they don't get everything. Smart. Too smart. And how do we release it? Yes. That made him pause. Just for a second. Then he turned the tablet toward me. I already prepared it. Of course he had. What am I looking at? A report, he said. Simplified. I scrolled. And for the first time, understood. Not the code. Not the systems. But the truth. Clear. Structured. Undeniable. Money being moved. Records being altered. Layers of lies covering it all. How long have you been working on this? Yes. Since I found it. I exhaled slowly. This is real. Yes. And once it's out, they can't stop it. I looked at him. You're sure? Yes. That word again. Always the same. Always certain. And somehow, that certainty gave me strength. Okay, I said. Then we do it. Morning came faster than I expected. The sun rose like it always did. Like nothing had changed. Like the world wasn't about to shift under our feet. Carol made coffee. Didn't drink it. Just held the cup in her hands. You're really going through with this? She asked. He nodded. We don't have a choice. She looked at Ethan. Then back at me. Be careful. I will. But we both knew. There was no careful anymore. Ethan connected his tablet. Opened the file. Hovered over the final step. Once I do this, he said. It's public. I took a deep breath. Then nodded. Do it. He pressed it. And just like that, everything changed. First, nothing happened. Just silence. Notifications. One. Then another. Then dozens. Then hundreds. Emails. Messages. Alerts. It was spreading. Faster than I expected. What's happening? Carol asked. People are seeing it, I said. Ethan nodded. They're sharing it. Within an hour. It wasn't just out there. It was everywhere. By noon, phones started ringing. Unknown numbers. News outlets. Reporters. People asking questions. Looking for answers. By afternoon, it hit television. And that's when it became real. Really real. 'Cause now, it wasn't just our story anymore. It was public. Visible. Impossible to ignore. They can't stop it now, Carol whispered. No, I said. They can't. But that didn't mean we were safe. Not yet. That evening another car pulled up outside. My heart stopped. But this time, it wasn't the same. Different. Marked. Official. Two people stepped out. Not suits. Not quiet. Federal agents. Everything inside me tensed again. Should we answer? Carol asked. I looked at Ethan. He nodded. Yes. Open the door. The agent spoke first. Mrs. Cooper. Yes. We need to speak with you, and your grandson. I stepped aside. Come in. This time, it felt different. Not like before. Not hidden. Not quiet. They sat down. Professional. Direct. We've reviewed the data, one of them said. And? He looked at Ethan. Then back at me. It's legitimate. My chest tightened. And it's bigger than you think. I let out a slow breath. I already know that. He nodded. An investigation has been opened. Against who? Yes. Multiple parties. That didn't surprise me. But what he said next. Your grandson's work made that possible. I looked at Ethan. He didn't react. Didn't smile. Didn't celebrate. Just listened. He did the right thing, the agent added. That meant more than anything. More than the news. More than the exposure. More than the fear. 'Cause for once, someone in authority wasn't trying to silence him. They were acknowledging him. Seeing him. The next few weeks were a blur. Interviews. Statements. Investigations. Rest. The principal. Financial officers. People I had never even heard of. All connected. All part of something much bigger than a school. And it all started with Ethan. One afternoon, after everything had settled just a little, I found him in the living room, sitting on the floor, surrounded by something I hadn't seen in years. Toy cars, arranged perfectly, by color, by shade, just like before. I sat down next to him. Not too close. Just enough. You did something incredible, I said softly. He didn't look at me. I fixed something that was wrong, he replied. Simple. Direct. That was Ethan. That matters, I said. He nodded slightly. Then after a moment, he said something I'll never forget. They didn't listen before. I felt my chest tighten. No, I said. They didn't. But now they have to. Smiled. Tears in my eyes. Yes, I whispered. Now they do. And in that moment, I realized something. The world didn't change because people suddenly cared. Changed because someone like Ethan made it impossible to ignore the truth. And I thought back to that day. The day Rachel left him on my doorstep. Silent. Alone. Abandoned. And I realized. She didn't leave behind a burden. She left behind a mind the world wasn't ready for. But it is now. Thank you for watching this story. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. For more stories like this, check out our channel and watch other videos. Visit our channel for more exclusive content and updates.